Welcome back to Equity Guru's The Gauntlet. I am Gaalen Engen, one of the crew here at Equity Guru. I'm sitting talking to the gentleman behind a company by the name of Beyond Minerals. That is BY on the Canadian Securities Exchange, in case anybody's looking for a ticker. These gentlemen are involved in the exploration of energy minerals, more specifically lithium at this point in time. I've got Allan Frame, who is recently CEO of the company. And then I also have Alain Lambert, who is also the founder of said company. He's got a lot of history. Both actually have a lot of history with the company. And I'm going to get that history right now. Al, can you just tell me about Beyond Minerals in a short form, and then also your relation to it?
Sure, you bet. Thanks for having me on your show, number one, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Beyond Minerals. About a year ago, I was working with Haywood Securities as an investment advisor, and I spent 47 years in the investment industry, and the last probably 40 of those actually underwriting mining and resource companies, oil and gas as well. So about a year ago, Alain Lambert approached me and asked me if I would do an IPO for this new company, Beyond Minerals, which has some other interesting founding partners as well, one of them being Victor Cantor. So anyway, I was interested, obviously, because these people have a good, successful track record. So I did the IPO for them. And my focus has always been to be lean and mean when you do an IPO, no fluff, like do as small an issue as you can and hope that, success befalls you and you can do raising capital at higher prices. So anyway, they were all for that, set up a really tight structure. In fact, even today, after raising capital on several different issues, there's only 25 million shares, out of which the founders and principals own about half, about 45% fully diluted, 48 not. So 25 million non-diluted, 28 million fully diluted. Tight stock, lots of torque if you do the right things. So that's appealing to me. So anyway, I did the issue for them. Then last May, I retired from the industry from Haywood on May the 13th. And just recently, Alain Lambert, because of our previous relationships and our ongoing friendship, asked me if I'd like to become more involved with Beyond Minerals and take on the president and CEO role. Well, since I knew the principals well, and I liked the structure because I did have a hand in it, of course, uh, I thought, yeah, this is pretty good. This is the type of company for me that if you do the right things, can have really good torque because it's structured well. So when it was first started, it was more or less a listed shell, looking for something that we could stand out against others. Something that's in the now where people they want to invest. We've recently had lots of government incentives promised, whether they come to pass or not. We all hope they will. And of course, in this day and age, everybody's carbon conscious and looking for cleaner ways of transportation, et cetera, et cetera. And lithium is the forefront of nearly all of that movement. There are many other metals as well, copper and cobalt and others, but lithium is where it's at. And in Canada recently, it's almost like reminds me of the old Klondike days with staking rushes. So, looking around and watching in Quebec, as mentioned or in an earlier conversation, a few months ago or less than a year ago, you could get in there and pick up a hectare of land for maybe 50 or $55 and skyrocketed up to close to 500 now. So we're sitting there thinking, wow, there's some momentum here to say the least. So we took a look at Ontario, found that the same situation had not occurred there, but my belief is that it will. And we've selected a couple of areas that we wanted to get involved in the lithium trends. We picked up some properties called the Peggy Group initially. Those are very good looking properties. We're pretty happy with them. It's near Green Technologies, new discoveries. So that's got us pretty excited. And we picked up just recently in the Trout Lake area, about 80 kilometers north of Red Lake, some other properties which are inhabited by Frontier and others who have also been very successful. We've taken our time to look at the geology and talk to as many knowledgeable people as we can to make sure that we're picking properties of merit. And we're still on the hunt. We'd like to acquire more properties in Ontario if we're successful, not just any properties, of course, but good properties of merit, like the ones we already own. By the way, we're a little over 13,000 hectares now. We hope to be able to grow that through successful negotiation on reasonable terms in good areas. We'll see how that pans out, but that's basically where we sit for now.
It's a pretty interesting story, especially the whole 25 million share part. This is not something you typically see in exploration juniors. They're usually got more shares than they know what to do with, which is this is shows a nice fiscal responsibility, right? That you guys are at the hammer and wanting to put the money into the ground rather than just raising it willy-nilly to keep the lights on. Now, both of you have a big history in the industry itself. Alain, do you want to give me a bit of history as far as your relationship is with the Beyond Minerals?
Yes, so Beyond Minerals was a project that I initiated with a friend of mine who's fairly well known in Canadian capital markets. His name is Victor Cantori. Victor and I are old friends, and we wanted to collaborate on something that we could list and go try to build something significant together. And the first thing that came to mind with respect to the IPO was to call my old friend Allan Frame, because we've been dealing together since the early 90s quite successfully. And so that when it became sort of a three-way group, so Al at Haywood as a broker and Victor and I. And we recently were able to find a focus into lithium. And we did do some exploration last year on the property that we had when we listed. We like the results. We still have that property. But as Al said, we're looking at what's going on in Ontario in the lithium space, and that's we see quite a few opportunities.
Interesting. Now, growing into Ontario as it is, what are your plans then over the next 12 months?
Well, I can perhaps answer that. So we do obviously have a strategy in mind. So our plan number one, which we're presently deep into, is to acquire properties of merit, as I said earlier. We hope to be able to add to that over the course of the next 4 weeks or so. Once we have a land package that we're happy with, that I hope sets us out from others in terms of total property. We will get together and we will work on a program for exploration that will include obviously ground truthing, people on the ground more prospecting, looking for drill targets. Some of them we think are close to drill ready already. We will drill this year as well, probably in the second and third quarters, the way that I see it. And we're pretty optimistic about that. In fact, some of the properties we're not certain of this, but we may be able to obtain old cores from previous drill programs when lithium and pegmatites weren't anything worth assaying. So that may be a shortcut to some drill targets and maybe some early success. We'll see. But it's just another opportunity for us. So acquire, explore, and hopefully with some success, exploit. That's our plan for 2023.
It's interesting. And this lithium push right now is a very important push in terms of our transition to green energy, and to have a local source, as it were, that we can actually get at. The EV revolution, power storage, this is all very relevant right now. And it's interesting how the younger generation of investors and the younger generation in general are now beginning to look to mining without that whole sort of pariah aspect, and in some ways unjustly, portrayed upon it. There have been accidents, as it were, Imperial Mines up in northern BC there with the tailings dam that broke apart on them and, destroyed everything around them pretty well for a while. That really put a black eye on mining, especially in Canada. You guys are very much focused on the new sort of approach. And I don't want to say if it's new, but mining continues to evolve, and you're very much aware of the ESG requirements that are involved in exploration and the responsibilities towards the community and the environment in and around those discoveries. Tell me more about what that's about for you guys.
Well, I think it's the same for everybody in the industry now, but for us, it's paramount importance. If you're not a good corporate citizen, you shouldn't expect any rewards anyway. So, and as far as the indigenous groups in the area are concerned, we intend to become fully involved and engaged with them totally transparent. We're not going to have anybody come to us say, "What did you do that for?" You know, we're going to say, "Yeah, that's what they told us they would do." We're going to be good corporate citizens. And as far as the ESG is concerned, I mean, we all live on this planet. We don't want to mess it up for anybody either. You know, we're very, very keen on making sure we do a good, clean, and efficient job. Today's rules and regulations that have changed pretty dramatically over the years too. You know, and if you follow by the book, you shouldn't have those problems. Obviously, accidents can still happen, but we'll do everything in our power to make sure that that does not happen. It's safety first for us and environment first as well. They're both tied in top place, and we intend to be as good a corporate citizen as we can in the mining industry. Everybody needs to be cognizant of the planet and what we can do to harm it, and make sure that we're not contributors to the harm.
That's a great way to sum up that whole aspect of what mining is and needs to be in the coming years. And the other thing is that it's also beginning to realize with the new generation that, you know, my iPhone, everything that I think is, you know, going to lead my life forward is a direct result of minerals. All of this stuff is coming out of the ground. It's not just appearing out of nowhere. And so I think they're really beginning to see that this is a necessary function within society and not something that, not even that can be easily dismissed, but can't be dismissed because it's absolutely integral to the economy and how we're going to move forward as a civilization. Now, you guys are ticking a lot of boxes here, right? You're getting into an avenue of mining that is very relevant right now, that we are, you know, making this transition towards green energy. You're frugal, fiscally responsible. You can see that in the amount of shares that you guys have put out with this company. And you also have a tremendous amount of insider ownership, which also speaks to the idea that you guys believe in what you're doing. You're not just coming out and going, hey, throw some money at us and we'll disappear in 6 months. You believe in what you're doing, and you know that going forward, there's going to be value generated in what you're doing in a good way for everybody. So you're willing to get behind it. Your money is where your mouth is. The other thing that I want to talk about is where do you think the lithium market itself is heading over the next 2 or 3 years? Like, what is your view on how that's going to open up?
Well, I'll answer that one as well, unless Alain wants to jump in. But right now, the lithium prices have eased off this year, as everybody's well aware, fairly significantly too. You know, I consider that to be a relatively short-term thing. If you take a look at all the goals from, say, 2030 on, you know, there'll have to be so much more lithium produced and lithium mines around the world to meet that supply that it's almost unfathomable, actually. So this year prices are down and they're still highly profitable. So that's not a bad starting spot as far as I'm concerned. I'd say this year prices will remain probably somewhere where they are. And I'm not a price projector or anything like that, but longer term, say 2 years out plus, I see a steady increase in the value for lithium and lithium products. And I don't see any slowdown there whatsoever. If we want to meet our green goals, that's the price you're going to have to pay. You will have to create mines, and I know mines ultimately are somewhat dirty in a lot of people's minds, but they create clean products. And it's like they say, you can't cook an egg without breaking it first. So that's just the way it is. So I'm very optimistic for the outlook. And if we have the most success we could ever imagine in our wildest dreams, we will not be mining anything in 2023. So we'll just find a way for price appreciation. But if we did have a mine today at today's prices, we'd be happy with that too.
Now, if anyone were to be interested and obviously should be once they listen to this interview, but if they're wanting to know more about Beyond Minerals, how would they go about doing it? You guys have a website? Can they contact you directly? Like, what are the ways that they can find out more about Beyond Minerals?
Well, perhaps Alain would like to answer that question.
Oh, yes, we do have a website. And there is a presentation in there. It's being updated now. And I'm certainly pretty old school, and I know Al's the same. So we are always available to talk to shareholders, and our coordinates are on the website, and happy to take emails and even phone calls.
Awesome. This is.
I might say
go ahead.
that it's being updated. And I think it's going to be an in-depth revision to the website that we're working on to better reflect our focus on lithium and also our focus on Ontario, because Al, like any good CEO, when he joined the company, he set out some very specific criteria for the company, and we do everything through that lens. And one of them is that we will focus on Ontario for a number of good reasons, including the fact that compared to Quebec, there are more projects available and at a better price than in Quebec. So then we feel that people are eventually going to come into Ontario more and more, and prices will go up. I know Al wants to maintain a fairly strict financial discipline to everything we do, and that's how we spend the money, and it's how we structure transactions. We're doing transactions we're contemplating transactions in Ontario, and completed some at prices like $50 a hectare, when neighbors are trading stuff at 150, 175, and that's just not, we don't believe in the law of relative overvaluation, that you should overpay because the market's overpaying, right? So we want to remain very, very disciplined. And Al talked about the share structure. That's also because him and I are old school. There's got to be a compelling reason to issue any shares, and they got to be issued at the right price and to the right people.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today. This has been a very informative interview, and I'm really excited about Beyond Minerals and where it can go. And I would love to talk to you guys more at another date if you want to come back. This is awesome. Again, for anybody that's listening, Beyond Minerals can be found at the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol BY. It's a great lithium miner in the making. There's interesting prospects in Ontario, and a frugal operation. That's not a lot of things that you hear in terms of junior miners. Thank you so much for joining me, Al and Alain. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and good luck to all Beyond shareholders and all potential shareholders. We'll be as aggressive and responsible as we can and try to create value for you through the drill bit.